You're listening to Docs Outside the Box, episode 30.
Welcome to Docs Outside the Box podcast. This is your official show, looking inside the minds of cutting-edge and innovative doctors. Think you'll find these stories in any medical textbook? Sorry. You're getting real life insight from men and women pushing the envelope beyond medicine. Ordinary doctors doing extraordinary things. Let's start now with your host, Dr. Nee Darko.
This episode is brought to you by Set for Life Insurance. Protect yourself against life setbacks with Set for Life Insurance. Set for Life Insurance gets you disability and life insurance at a reduced cost with their exclusive discounts. Now that's why I use them. Visit www.setforlifeinsurance.com and tell them Dr. Darko sent you. What's good, everyone? This is the Doc Outside the Box, Dr. Nee Darko, host of Docs Outside the Box podcast, where I'm bringing you stories of ordinary doctors who are doing extraordinary things to inspire you. That's right, you doctors around the world to live outside the box. My next guest is Dr. Aleron Kong, who definitely is doing something extraordinary and something that I think you all have probably never heard of. He's an author within the field of sci-fi, specifically within the field of LitRPG. And that is something that I'd never heard about prior to me interviewing him. But nonetheless, LitRPG, first let's start with what RPG is. RPG is a role-playing game. And if you're familiar or ever heard of games like Skyrim or games like The Witcher or games like World of Warcraft, then you know what I'm talking about. LitRPG basically is the melding of sci-fi and fantasy with video games and is turned out to be something that is a very popular genre, popular niche among its fans. And Dr. Aleron Kong has been a fan of this, a consumer of this type of information, and just realized that there was a void in this niche, and he wanted to take a chance at contributing to this, and it became this huge snowballing effect that has kind of just taken off. And he has earned a moniker of the father of LitRPG. And I wanted to have him on the show because I wanted to hear about this interesting life, this interesting alternate life that I think so many of us don't know anything about. And with Dr. Kong, he found out that by filling this void, by being as creative as he could be, he found out what his passion in life was, which is actually pretty interesting if you consider after 10, 12, 13 years of being or training to become a physician, you finally find out after the fact what your passion is. And 6 books later, I mean, it's kind of exploded. He is an Amazon bestseller. He has inspired other authors to write their own book. And he, all in all, you'll hear in this episode, says that this has added validity to his life, which is, once again, like I said, being a physician, saving lives on a daily basis. To say that this is adding validity to his life speaks about how passionate he is about this work that he does. So very briefly, Dr. Kong is from the ATL. Basically, he went to Morehouse College and then from there decided to stay and went across the street and got his MD degree from the Morehouse School of Medicine, and then decided to do his training within Morehouse School of Medicine within the internal medicine division, where he got his training in internal medicine, and now he currently practices in Atlanta as a nocturnist. And things that I want you to gain from this interview is why he decided to write his own books. And then from there, I want you to listen to his quick and easy way to publish on Amazon. Listen, the days of the gatekeepers are gone. No longer do you have to go to New York City or go to Los Angeles or any other major media outlet to get your chance to produce a book. You can now do things on the internet. You know, you could do things a lot easier than basically 5, 10, and definitely 20 years ago. You're going to hear also about how he's able to balance his life as a nocturnist with putting out books as well as his newfound fame. Other things that I think is just as important also is his advice for doctors who want to be authors. You want to listen to this. And then also, as always, you're going to hear how he answers hashtag I'm not just a doc. So without further ado, let's get on with the interview. Here with another episode of Docs Outside the Box. I want to introduce you all to Dr. Aleron Kong, the father of American LitRPG. Dr. Kong, what's up, man? Welcome to Docs Outside the Box.
What's up, man? It's good talking again. Long time since we were in surgery together.
Yeah,
Making me do some
while.
scut.
It's been a while, man. It's been a while. I treated you well, right?
Yeah, you did. I remember the first day I was there, you were just looking at me like, you too pretty, and you just wiped some blood on me. It was great. Wonderful thing.
Yeah, I do remember that. I do remember that. You bringing up back some old memories, man.
Old Grady life. Yeah.
The Atlanta life.
Yeah, it's a lot better on the other side.
So wait, let me make sure I get this right. So you were, when I was a resident, weren't you my medical student at one point?
Yeah, I was a student. Yeah.
And then then after that, I could have swore you were a resident at the same time. Like maybe I was a chief resident. You were either a second year or third year in medicine, right?
Yeah, I think I was an intern when you were heading out as a chief. Yeah.
It's been
I did my 3 years 5 years total at Grady with the schooling. But yeah, it was a long time ago, man. It adds up. From
med student to basically hospitalist to now basically I got you on the show, man. I love it, man.
Synergy, as they say.
Yeah, man. So look, before we get too much into the nitty gritty of the show, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, like what medical school you went to and so forth?
Yeah. Let's see. So I am, as far as I know, the only triple Morehouse alum in history. I went to Morehouse College.
Mean? Oh, you went to Morehouse College too?
Morehouse College, Morehouse School of Medicine, then Morehouse Internal Medicine residency.
So
as far as I know, I'm the only one, I think. So I don't know.
Okay.
So I did that, and then I came out, passed the boards, thank God, and then I went in and started working at Kaiser as the nighttime physician, a nocturnist. And honestly, it was exactly what I wanted. It's weird being up at night, but I get a lot of time off, so I get to travel, party, all that kind of stuff. And
so tell us why that's exactly why you wanted.
Basically because, being up at night is weird. There's no denying that. And working at night is harder than working during the day because, it's just you. There's not a lot of other support staff and, things like slow down. Like somebody comes in and needs surgery in the day, they may go right in, maybe not so much at night, things get pushed back. There's practical differences. And honestly, just being up at night is weird. But it's a large amount of time off. I don't have to deal with the stuff that a lot of other daytime physicians do. Like I don't discharge. I don't, do a lot of like social planning. I really just get to be a clinician. So every patient that I see, I go in, give them a little bit of like a 5-10 minute education about, their disease process, put some orders in, tuck them in, let them go to sleep, and I clock out. And the other point is that, I'm a big believer of like, work hard, play hard. And when I'm there, I'm going. But when I'm not there, there's no reason that anyone should ever be calling me at home, which is very important for my sanity, I think.
So
that's why.
So for the medical students that are listening, what you do is what's called a nocturnist?
Yeah, but for the medical students that are listening, what I would really say is that don't be fooled by a name or, a salary that goes along with it, because saying that you're a hospitalist even tells you nothing about the way your life's actually going to work out, how many hours you're going to be, how much autonomy, how much extra stuff. It really varies massively based on what part of the country you live in and, who you're working for.
That's a good point. So you're working actually in Atlanta, or you're in Atlanta Metro?
No, so I am in Atlanta, which was the other big selling point. I was actually at a health careers fair, and I went up to Kaiser and said, "You guys have any positions?" They're like a night position, and I literally laughed in her face and started walking away. And she, like, the recruiter came and grabbed my hand and was like, "Don't laugh at me." And she told me more about it. And the fact that I would not have a 30-45 minute commute was the number one thing that took me to the job at first.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm like one in Buckhead, like right in the city, and then like on the perimeter north side. So like at most I have a 12-minute commute, which was huge for me.
So technically you are doing internal medicine, but predominantly your hours are between 7 p.m. and 7 a.m.?
Yeah, I work 8 to 8. Yeah.
8 to 8. Okay.
Yeah.
Now how long you've been doing this?
3 years. I started working 2.5 weeks after residency ended, and I've been going since then.
You really don't give yourself a break at all, huh?
Nah, man, I'm Jamaican.
You got 3 jobs, man.
That's how I do.
Oh man. Okay. All right. So look, I introduced you as the father of American LitRPG. Like what? Mm-hmm. First of all, what is LitRPG? Give us the full definition. What does all that mean?
So LitRPG stands for literature role-playing game. And basically, if you've ever played like an online game like Warcraft or something like that, you know that you're this one character, you go out, you fight some people, You get experience points, you level up, you find items, go on quests, that kind of stuff. And basically, it's taking, science fiction and fantasy stories and writing them as if the characters live in that kind of world. So most of my like readership, honestly, like I've got like some younger people that are really into it, but most of them are like, 30 to 50-year-old guys that are like, I used to play Dungeons and Dragons back in the day. I used to play Warcraft back in the day. I used to do blah, 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 and I don't have the time to invest in it anymore, but it gives them that fix. The main point is that when you read my books, you feel like you're playing a video game, and that's what people love about it.
So are you keeping score, or the reader has to keep score during the read, or?
Yeah, I mean, there's like, so periodically you may like put up a character sheet saying, now you're level blah, 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 and such. But yeah, there's a lot of sort of calculations and dynamics that go on behind the scenes. I've got, hundreds of pages of reference documents just to keep stuff straight. And even then, like, something might like sneak through, because one of the things that surprised me is I always thought I was a little bit of a dork for like liking sci-fi and fantasy. But my fans are out-dorking me. They're like, technically, if you really think about it, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I guess that's right. I didn't even really think about it. But the cool thing about ebooks, which is my main format and modality, is you can just upload a new book the next day and you're good to go.
And so, speaking of your audience, I mean, your audience is not just a bunch of nerds. I mean, this is no joke. I was doing my own research on LitRPG, and, I had to go to the Verge, actually, and, I had to go to different Reddit communities to kind of figure out exactly what LitRPG is, but the community is very big. It's huge. It's vibrant. So talk more about the community.
So I mean, it is like, it's not just a bunch of people living in their mom's basement like somebody else might think. I have had personal conversations with fans of mine on 6 different continents. Everybody that I've got a lot of like soldiers that I may talk to. Judges, doctors. I talk to a politician. I talk to people that are involved in, various industries. And, a lot of people are very much into gaming. If you are not into it, you may be surprised that in 2017, they project online gaming to be a $17 billion industry just for this year. $17 billion. Yeah, I mean, it's insane. Another thing
ESPN is covering like the online World Series of online gaming or something like that, right?
Exactly. And there's big money in that. And then there's something called Twitch that people don't know about, where Twitch is literally just you pay a subscription fee to watch other people play video games, which sounds a little silly because like, everyone's maybe done that once or twice at their boy's house, right. But they're like hundreds of millions of dollars in. I mean, it's insane. And like, those are things that like I learned since I started all this. Another example is like they say 30 to 35% of all people that play online games are women. Which
what? Really?
Yeah. Okay. I was like, girls don't really play video games. And like, on Facebook, there's a World of Warcraft group, which is just one online video game that has 60,000 people, only women are allowed in. Yeah. I mean, it's been some interesting stuff. I thought so too. And until you talk to women that are game, they're like, we don't know why you're surprised. This is how we roll.
That is true. I mean, I guess that is basically based off of the biases that we kind of think, and times have changed,
Yeah.
So. Now, how did you go? Well, how did you get into becoming, so interested into actually writing sci-fi? Were you a big consumer of sci-fi growing up? Did you read a lot of those type of things?
Yeah, man, I've read almost every sci-fi book out there. I mean, I used to spend like time on a Saturday. I'm like, I'm going to go to this old bookstore that has out of print books so I can get stuff that's no one's even really talking about anymore. I did that forever. I've watched almost I've watched Ice Spiders, which is just a garbage, horrible movie just because it was sci-fi.
Yeah, I never heard of it.
Yeah, just awful. So yeah, I've always been into that kind of stuff. And honestly, writing was always the kind of thing where somebody said, hey, if you had $100 million, what would you do? I'm like, I'd be a writer. And then immediately say, but that'll never really happen.
So you actually had these thoughts that you can create your own type of world?
Yeah, not really. I didn't actually think I could do it. It was like a pie in the sky kind of thing.
Okay.
It's like if you have an accountant who's like, I would love to be a Broadway singer. And they say that, they're like, obviously that would never actually happen. But if I had a magic wand or a genie, then maybe that's what would happen. Mm-hmm. So it was never a realistic thing in my mind. Even when I was writing my first book, I literally thought maybe I'll make my mom read this or my boy read it one day, and that'll be it. And I never really thought it would turn into this business and industry that it has a year later.
When was your first book?
So I first put paper to pen September 16th of 2015. I published my first book November 21st, 2015. And 2 weeks ago, I just published my 6th book.
That's right. Congratulations on that. And you
thanks,
an
man.
Amazon bestseller, too, so congratulations.
Appreciate it.
Okay, so take us back to, instead of September, let's do August, maybe even July of 2015. How did you take that transition from someone who consumes sci-fi to someone who's saying that I want to write my own book? Like, take us through that. We want to be flies on the wall.
So basically, it was kind of a perfect storm because I found this genre, LitRPG. It had started over in, Russia or Asia, depending on like who you talk to. And it basically was just that melding of video games and sci-fi fantasy. So when I first read it, it was this guy named D.W. Jackson who wrote these series of short novellas. And I was like, oh my God, Mikoto Zone, where have you been all my life? This is the best thing I've ever found in my life. Oh my God. And I was like, how has no one ever come up with this? And I realized other people had come up with it. But it was, that was an example of like what I was talking about, that people that found it, where there were not very many people that were aware, we consumed everything that was available. And everything that was available was like 7 books. I mean, there were like 3 Russian authors that had translated 1 book maybe, or 2 books maybe. And then there were, 2 or 3 like American guys where one of them was good, 2 of them were just god awful, honestly. And then there was this Australian guy, and that was it. And so you were finding people that were reading the same book like 3 or 4 times, even the ones they didn't like, just to get that like LitRPG fix. And one day I was, just sort of going through and like, just complaining about how there wasn't anything new. And I was like, why don't I just try to do something about it? And honestly, the guys that wrote bad books were more inspiring to me than the ones that wrote good books, because I was like, well, I can't do any worse than that.
Okay.
So I just decided to give it a shot. And it turned into this thing. It was 2 months of just like furiously like, typing at the keys, getting super excited. And I discovered that it was my real passion in life. So I put it out there. One of my boys hooked me up with his friend who, does a little bit of writing on the side, and he gave me this like kind of like 2-page like primer of like, hey, this is how you sign up for an account on Amazon. This is how you do blah, blah, blah. And I just started going at it. And before I knew it, the book was up and people were feeling it. And I was like, oh, that's cool. And then I wrote another one, and then another one, and then another one, because in my mind, I thought I was going to go from point A to point B in like 2 books. But what's actually happened is that I've gone like 10% of the way from point A to point B in 6 books. It's just that the story that I have inside of me is taking up so much more time than I thought it was going to. And so that's how it all happened. And then also there was a dearth of people communicating about it. And more than my books, it was really me creating this community that got me that title of American, the father of American LitRPG. Right. I made the Facebook group. I reached out to other authors. Other authors told me like, hey, I read your book. I was inspired by you. They started writing their stuff. I put them up on the page. I reached out to, I would spend like 3 hours every morning, like reaching out to every like sci-fi, fantasy, whatever group I could find, being like, yo, what's up? There's this new genre. Do you mind if I post on your page? And again, the answer was no, but every once in a while, the answer was yes. And then we would kind of get more, members, and it would spread and it would get bigger. And so now, like a year ago, like I said, there were maybe 7 books out. Now there are almost 100 authors working on books that have multiple volumes. So it's very much snowballing at this point.
Have you taken any pride, or do you feel any pride in thinking that maybe you've inspired these other authors to kind of write their own books?
I very much feel pride in that. The fact that the books have given a validity to my life in a way that I didn't necessarily think that I would ever feel.
Speak more.
Good.
Speak more. Yeah.
Basically that, I'm proud of what I've done. Like, I'm proud of the fact that I got into medical school and then I made it through medical school and residency, and I'm proud of the fact that I'm a healer. But, I kind of feel a bit like a cog in the machine there, where I have a very, important job, but, I'm doing something that I was trained for. Here, I feel like I'm creating something. And it's not just the books that I'm creating, but I created a platform and helped to create a like a moment in time that other people could find as fertile ground, and then they could create their own things, I mean, nothing to take away from them doing it. I mean, they're the ones that did the work, but the fact that, people reach out and tell me like, hey, it's because of you that I'm doing such and such, or the fact that, most authors that publish on Amazon, they might sell 2 to 5 books a month. People that, work with me, that, come through my group, I mean, they're getting to the top 100 spots on Amazon. I mean, and that's translating into selling, I don't know, 10,000 books in your first month.
Wait, are you serious?
No, I mean, it's dead serious. I mean,
okay,
it's.
Let's take a step back then. Okay, so hold on a second. So you're selling, on average, how many books a month do you think you're selling? At least when you first come out.
Well, I mean, so when I first came out, it was a lot less. I was selling, people kind of found out about it by hook or by crook, and maybe I sold, I don't know, like a couple hundred, over the space of like a month or two. Okay. Now with my latest release, and when you look on the page, like a lot of people were quote unquote sick on Monday because my book released on Sunday and they took off of work to read it. It's a completely different kind of thing now. Yeah.
Wow. Now take us through the process of actually writing one of these books. Like you mentioned September of 2015, you started putting pen to paper. By November, it's already out. Like how do you even come up with the idea of what you want to write? Because there's a lot of people on the show, there's a lot of people who are listening, and they want to be able to create something on paper, create a book, create an ebook, and they're not sure exactly how to even start. So take us through that process of how you find inspiration to write a book.
So my number one guiding light was that I decided I would write a story that if I was the reader, I would want to read. So for me, like having, spent 30 years playing video games, reading sci-fi fantasy, watching these kind of movies and stuff, there were always things that I liked about some stories, always things that I didn't like about some stories. So for me, it was as simple as I want to create a character that does X for Y reason. And I want to create a world that does A for B reason and doesn't do C for D reason. And that's all it was. Now, when I first started writing, my world was not nearly as intricate and as involved as it was by the time I finished writing my first book. So when I was writing the first book, there were plenty of times where I was going to sleep and I would get an idea and be like, oh, that's fire. And I would hop up, furiously start writing stuff down, right. Go back to sleep, wake up and be like, man, I'm gonna have to rewrite this stuff. And I would just be like, well, I'm gonna do it right. And I just would throw out whatever I was working on before, or totally have to rework something so that it balanced better. But it was more fun for me, and I thought it'd be more fun for other people, kind of getting it that way. And then, you find what's important to you. Like for me, it's very important that not only that I write a enjoyable story, but that I touch on societal issues that, I think are, important for people to address.
Can you give an example?
Yeah. In the first book, the main character kind of finds out that there's a slave trade going on. So the second half of the first book is him working with the Underground Railroad to get, free some of these slaves and the consequences that go along with that. Now, with that being said, it's not like a rewrite of Roots. I personally hate it when people preach at me, even if they have a good point. So for me, it's like I work that into a story of, danger and intrigue and action and magic, all the stuff that I would want to read. But when you really get down to it, that's what the story's about. Same thing with my main character being black. Like I mentioned that clearly once or twice, but I never really go out of my way to beat people over the head with it. One of my biggest problems with, black television is that a lot of times when we're making these stories, it's a story about being black. And I'm like, I don't necessarily need a story about being black. I am black, and I feel like it gets a little over the top. I want to see a version of Friends with a black cast that's just funny with black people in it. I want to see a version of whatever other famous, TV show that's out there that has a bunch of, black cast members that are, funny and topical or whatever, but it's not trying to beat someone over the head. So that's a kind of a line that I walk.
I feel you on that one. I understand that one. Now, once you finish a book and you start the process of self-publishing or getting on Amazon, take us through that. You don't have to give us all the intricacies, but honestly,
it's so easy. Go to Amazon, go to Kindle Direct Publishing or KDP Amazon, or just on Google, type in Amazon author. It'll pull up this website called Kindle Direct Publishing. Make a free profile. Click upload my document. Click upload whatever cover you have. You're done. You're an author. That's it.
That's it, huh?
There's it. I mean, I didn't know that when I first started. I was like, oh, maybe I'll have to get a publicist and all this other stuff. And no, I mean, that's just not the way it works anymore. If you ever get big, like J.K. Rowling and stuff like that, then yeah, you want those people behind you. And even at this point, there's things that I'm trying to do to like land one for very specific reasons. But in general, anyone that wants to upload, you upload. And then it's just a matter of like, have you written a story that people are going to enjoy? Can you let the people that this is marketable to know about it? So like anything else.
Speaking of writing a story that people are going to enjoy, obviously people enjoy your books based off of what you're saying. So how are you handling your newfound fame?
So I enjoy it, and I enjoy like being accessible. So every day when I wake up, there's probably like 2, 3, 5 emails from people that are like, yo, I really like this, or yo, I have a question about such and such. And, I just kind of take the time to respond to them, say what's going on, blah, blah. And they're like, yeah, thanks. And, the biggest sort of modality for me is my Facebook group, which is kind of the core of the LitRPG community at this point. So, it's very common there for me to, just sort of chime in on whatever posts or anything else like that. But I think that's also one of the things that contributed greatly to my success is that, I've read plenty of books growing up, and the idea of actually being able to speak to an author was like a pie in the sky kind of thing. It's never going to happen. LitRPG has a kind of a culture that's evolved that if there's something that you didn't like or did like about a book or whatever, you can probably post about it and you'll get an answer from the person that wrote it, within however long.
Yeah, that's pretty odd because, you and I know, whatever type of industry, whether it's entertainment, whether it's whatever it is, for the most part, it's very hard to get direct access to the person who's producing that situation. Social media has made it a lot easier nowadays, but that's kind of unheard of in other industries to have that direct access to producers, actually.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that people really enjoy, and it's also one of the reasons that a lot of people are being inspired to their own voice, because it's not like you're listening to a song and you're like, oh, well, Beyonce's saying that, obviously, blah, blah, blah. It's like, oh, I'm reading this book, and this dude is just like me. There's no reason that I can't do this.
Are there any other doctors that you know are doing this right now or writing like this?
Not that I'm aware of. And honestly, a lot of times, it happens a lot where somebody will be like, Mr. Kong, I loved your book. And one of my other fans will be like, that's Doctor. And he's like, he's a doctor? What is that all about? I had no idea. So it's always kind of a surprise to them on that side too. But it's never really something that I push. I put it on the inside of my jacket cover. But other than that, I don't really, kind of push that side of my persona on it too much.
Now, how are you finding balance between being a nocturnist or being, doing your job and writing these books or responding? It takes a lot of time to do this stuff, but you have to work the night shift. You're tired in the morning.
It's true.
How is all that working out? Give us a glimpse into that.
Well, the hospitalist life by itself is built to, have a life outside of the hospital, despite whatever the name is. Average hospitalist is a week on, week off. And, my own pattern is like that, but slightly better to offset the fact that I'm up at night. So, when I'm off, I'm kind of just like grinding. Now, with that being said, I didn't really take too many trips last year. I still partied and had a good time, but, I also learned through residency that, every day is filled with wasted minutes where you're kind of just sitting around doing nothing. Right. That's not how I roll anymore. If I've got a cool idea, my phone is out and I'm, tapping my fingers to put it away, and I kind of have my laptop with me everywhere. So, if I've got a free minute or if I've got a down hour, then I'll just start tapping away, and it adds up.
How about your colleagues at work? Do they know what you're doing?
Mm-hmm.
Positive feedback or negative feedback?
There's definitely been some hate. There's always
really?
Well, yeah. Doctors are not necessarily the most well-adjusted people all the time. There's a lot of type A, a lot of sort of M-deity, as I kind of heard somebody else phrase it.
M-deity. I haven't heard that before. I like it.
So for me, it's like, some people are like, oh, good job. Other people, cast a little bit of passive aggressive shade. But, part of the whole thing with me being a writer was it was the process that led me back to sanity after going through training and everything else like that, because that took a real emotional toll on me. So even if I get like something negative these days, I don't really stress it. Like, I'm doing me, you do you, I do my job. If you do your job, we don't have to be friends. Just take care of some patients, and hopefully we can be friends. But it's not necessary.
Okay, so let's do I'm going to ask you about comparing and contrasting your life. Let's talk about economics. I'm not going to get too much into your pockets, but I just want to know, obviously working as a hospitalist, you have a pretty good lifestyle, very comfortable lifestyle. As a author, best-selling author on Amazon, how's the economics? How's it looking? Is it good? Similar?
Yeah, I mean, it's gotten real good, and it's changed dramatically over the past 6 months. Because if you assume that people like your book and they are going to read the next one, having one book is going to get you X amount, having 2 books is going to get you 2X amount, and on and on and on, right? And then when you add in, you do some advertising, and other people are like, yo, you got to check this out, that kind of adds up as well. Now, I mean, I'm a new author, so I don't know what that looks like going forward 5 years or not. But I think a lot of people don't know what it looks like going forward 5 years. One of the coolest things for me is I've been able to meet authors that I read over the past 20 years, and like I'm hitting these dudes up.
Them grow, basically.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen them grow. I've read their stuff forever. They were the equivalent of, a Drake, a Beyonce, or whatever in the literary field, where I never thought I would, be able to speak to these guys. But, when my name is close to theirs on the leaderboards and I hit them up, they're like, yeah, what's going on? And honestly, my question is always like, what can I do better? What, blah, blah. And they're like, man, I got into this 20 years ago, dude. He's like, I've just been cashing checks. I don't know what you guys do now. What's Twitter? So I've asked the people a lot of questions. I've looked on a lot of different forums. And what I've really found, man, is that success in this and probably anything else is just a hustle. It's the same stuff that cats were doing back in the day.
Hard work.
And it's like, if you, it's hard work and luck and, being willing to be open and make connections. It's just, yeah.
What's your advice for doctors who are going to listen to this podcast and are interested in becoming an author? What are you going to say to them?
So just as far as like the author thing, like write something that, well, yeah, I mean, the same advice that I just already gave, like write something that you would want to read. But also, you have to walk a line between staying true to your message and, following feedback. So you don't want to pander to everyone that doesn't like something that you have written. But at the same time, if everyone is telling you one thing, then you got to let go of that arrogance saying like, well, I'm right and the world is wrong. And that was like kind of a balancing act that I had to learn. But then also, I mean, it very much depends on what, kind of genre you're writing in, I suppose. Like I said, I hit a perfect storm. This was brand new. I loved it. And I was able to, make stories that people were interested in. And also I created a community that worked, because when someone came to me, I wasn't like, all right, well, what are you going to do for me before I do something for you? It was more like, okay, well, what can I do for you? With the idea being that, a rising tide raises all boats.
Love it.
But, with that being said, like the other side of that fame question that you asked me was I have had a lot of just like what we call trolls or haters, people that are just kind of like just nasty, only out for themselves, whatever.
So how are you handling that? Are you blocking everyone or what?
I've had to start blocking people. I tried to do this like Kumbaya United Nations thing for a minute. And then, one day I woke up and I was like, you know what? It was just like that scene from Half Baked, like you cool, I'm out. And because I was getting worked up, and the kind of negativity that these people were bringing to the table was starting to infect my heart, and I was starting to lose some of that passion and joy that I had. So I decided I had to start delegating, where I don't really take an active role in my group anymore. I've got like 4 guys that are great. They get the party line. They know what we're all about. They have a similar love for the genre. And I'm like, yo, don't take any mess. These are the rules. Somebody steps out, they're done. Enough. And with that being said, the group stopped being negative. It was like being negative sometimes. And now it's just like people laughing, you know, joking around, you know, talking to dozens, having a good time. And that's kind of like, you know, what I'm trying to be all about. I don't know. There may be a different way to do it. There may be a more Machiavellian cutthroat way to do it. But I would rather make something positive and then reap the benefits of that, hoping that, you know, I guess, you know, good wins over evil or whatever you want to call it.
Right.
But,
well,
you know, yeah.
Well, we're getting towards the end of the interview, so I want to ask some quick, fast questions to you. Are you game? You ready to do this?
Go ahead. Let's do it.
All right. So this is going to be more specific to you. So I want to get to know how much of a sci-fi buff are you. So
okay.
If you had to pick between Star Wars and Star Trek?
You got to go with Star Trek, man. It's got a franchise.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
I would have done Star Wars. Okay.
I get that. Most people would.
What's one thing you want listeners to get from this podcast?
That if you are in medicine, don't let your life be about medicine. The reason a lot of doctors that you work with are upset and angry is because they made that mistake.
That's a good one. What can the audience expect from you in 5 years, man? My goal for as far as literary is to write 50 books, have at least one of them made into a movie, and to win a Hugo Award, which is kind of like the Oscars for science fiction fantasy. Really?
Yeah.
Love it, man. Nice. All right, so in order to get to that point, obviously you are handling so many different things. Give us a life hack that you're doing right now, that you're using right now to make yourself that much more productive. You have to make up something that people enjoy enough that they're willing to invest their time to help you succeed. And you also have to, you know, the one thing that I've been thinking about nonstop is there's this movie War Dogs, which is like, honestly, not that great of a movie. But there's this one scene where this guy is trying to convince his boy to run guns with him. And his boy is like, that sounds real dangerous. And why would anyone buy guns from you when there's big corporations? And he's like, the big guys are fighting over the big slices of pie. He's like, that's not me. He's like, I'm the rat underneath the table getting the little crumbs. And people ignore those crumbs because they think they're too small. But that's only because you don't realize that the pie is the size of like an airport. Those crumbs are enough to feed you and 8 families. So that really kind of like stuck with me, as opposed to trying to be the next big whatever, as opposed to like, you know, really caring if like everyone knows your name. Like, ask yourself what is really going to make you happy. For me, it was financial independence, good people, traveling, barbecue, pool parties, that kind of stuff. In that order?
Like, not even in that order. It depends on the day. So for me, it's like, you know, I'm getting my fingers in like a lot of different pies, which also gives me the peace of mind and the financial independence that if, you know, any one thing goes down, I'm not going to be, you know, sad and out. I would say that stop doing the same thing that the people that the sad people you see doing are doing, because it's just going to make you sad. Get a life outside of it.
Love it. Good advice. Let's take it back to the sci-fi tip. So you speak any sci-fi languages?
No, man.
Right. My wife just wanted to know that. She was like, ask him if he speaks like Klingon or Dothraki or something.
No, I don't know any of that. No.
All right. What's something that you're proud of that nobody knows?
Let's see. I guess the number one thing is that outside of like getting to the top for Amazon and all the other kind of stuff that is good, people have reached out to me and shared very personal and difficult things about their lives, saying like, you know, my mother passed. I was having a hard time with it. Somebody gave me your book and one of your scenes spoke to me. You got me over the hump. Like those kind of like connections really are the kind of the validity thing that I was talking about, where there's like now like a validity to my life that I didn't necessarily think that I would ever really be able to grasp. And kind of having people approach you about this real stuff that really matters lets me let go of a lot of my own BS and the stuff that didn't matter that I was sweating. It gave me some perspective.
Do you ever feel pressure to kind of keep writing, or To continue to produce this for your audience, since, like you said, I mean, so many people are dependent. They find joy from what you're writing, and for you to kind of say, like, for example, it's people are finding happiness from what you're writing. I just want to know, do you feel pressure to kind of keep going?
I absolutely feel pressure. And I have to remind myself that the reason they enjoy what I'm doing is because I'm not pandering or, sacrificing what I wanted to do. And it's hard to remember that sometimes, because I heard, before I even started writing, I heard this thing, like a 30, 60, 90 rule, where if somebody likes your book for 30 days, you're all they can think about. For 60 days, they're waiting for you. 90 days, they've moved on. And, it's not, I haven't necessarily found that to be true. But at the same time, with our consumer society and the fact that more and more and more people can produce, you don't want to be forgotten. I've honestly kind of just feel like that falls down to BS again at the end. You do you, and, just kind of let the chips fall where they may. That's what I think.
I love the answer. So knowing what you know now as Dr. Kong, as the father of American LitRPG, what advice would you have given yourself as a pre-med?
Oof, man. Go to therapy and work out more. like for real. I had to, I started, the other reason that I started writing was because I had started going to therapy. And the first day that I was in therapy, he was like, we're going to go through this questionnaire. He's like, are you a drinker? You do drugs? You a gambler? Your mom not like you? You have issues with sex? You have issues with, I'm like, no, I got real good friends, date as much as I want, don't have any issues with substance abuse, I make a good living, blah, blah, blah. And he went through this whole questionnaire, and he's like, well, why are you here? And I said, because with the job that I have, and with the family that I have, and with the friends that stand by me, and with the money that I make, and with where I live, I feel like I should be the luckiest guy in the world, which should translate to me being the happiest guy in the world. But all I really feel is like something's missing every day. And he looked at me and he was like, this is a very common problem, though I normally only get it when someone's 45 after their first divorce. And what
crisis time.
Yeah, like when it goes down.
But you're getting this 15 years early.
A little bit early. What he helped me realize was that I wasn't missing a thing. Because I would kind of share this with people, and they'd be like, well, go back to school. Well, have a kid. Well, get married. Well, train for a marathon. Well, start investing in real estate. Well, move to such and such. And all those answers kind of seemed okay, but not really. It's like the reason those answers didn't work is because you're not missing a thing from your life. What you were missing is that when you used to wake up in the morning, you would open your eyes, smile slightly, and be like, I wonder what's going to happen. And that changed into, you woke up in the morning, you were like, man, same stuff, whatever. And it was really just about perspective. And I have been talking, the reason I share something that's so personal is that I've talked to a lot of other physicians that say, yo, man, I was feeling something very similar. Ever since residency, I feel like I lost this gleam. I lost this excitement. I lost this whatever. I didn't know anyone else feels that way.
Speak on it.
We learn about these things. We learn about how physicians are the worst patients. We learn about psychological things that, so we know it's not that only crazy people go to therapy. But even for me, during my 5th visit, I felt a certain way. I was like, yo, man, I'm no punk. I just want to be clear with you. I'm no punk. And I don't want you to think I'm crazy and blah, blah, blah. Even as a healthcare professional, I still had to address that with this guy that's helping me. And he was like, yo, man, I would tell you if I thought you were complaining. I think you're great. And literally I was like, Dad, oh, thanks. I don't know. But real talk, I think that what we go through to become physicians is probably the most intense training that happens outside of the armed forces. And it's not surprising that it takes a toll on us mentally, physically, and emotionally. And one of the reasons that I feel like there's so much stress and angst and drama and whatever in hospitals or between physicians is that because we're all sort of fighting with similar demons, but we don't want to admit it or we can't. If I was forming a medical school, like therapy would be a necessary thing, just flat out. I would also, at least once a week, put a free hour for people to go to the gym. Flat out.
I never thought about it that way, and the way how you describe things, it really rings a bell. It resonates with me. I think it's going to resonate with the audience because, we don't think about how intense our training is and what the effects are going to be. But once you put it in that type of perspective, it really makes it easy to understand that, there's going to be collateral damage. It's just how much of it are we going to hide, right? Or how much are we going to share with people? So I really appreciate that answer. That's a very, very honest answer. So I love it. I love it.
I hope it helps.
I want you to finish this sentence for me. It's the last sentence that I ask all of my guests. It's a hashtag. It's hashtag I'm not just a doc, I'm a, and then I want you to complete it. Some people have answered world traveler. Some people have answered author, doctorpreneur. So to you, Dr. Aleron Kong, the father of American LitRPG, I'm not just a doc, I'm a
human being.
That's a first, actually. Love it. It's a good answer, man.
Yeah, it's how I feel. Less BS, more fun.
Love it. Well, look, Dr. Kong, this was an amazing interview. I
had a good time.
Thank you for your time. You dropped some knowledge, dropped some gems on us. And, I think the audience is really going to gain a lot from listening to this podcast. So thank you again for your time. We got to do it again. That's it. Another great episode is under wraps. That was one of my favorite episodes. He is definitely dynamic, has a lot of energy, and I really hope that he resonated with you. And my 2 takeaways from this episode, and there were a lot of things to take away from this episode. This was a really good episode where he dropped a lot of gems and he got a chance to reveal himself and be open to us. But my 2 takeaways from this were, 1, I don't know if you guys caught that part where he said that there's a difference between being trained to do something as a doctor and actually creating something. And I think he wasn't trying to berate being a physician. Obviously, that's the pinnacle for a lot of us, for all of us, obviously. But I think what he mentioned is in today's world, physicians to an extent can be taken and looked at as a cog in the wheel, and comparing and contrasting that with creating something where nobody else has created anything and where you're putting your information and your thoughts and your soul out there speaks to something completely different. And that really resonated with me. And I hope you all caught that. And that was something that, really meant something to me, because in this situation where I'm creating this podcast, I was going through something similar where I went through all the hoops and jumped off all the hurdles to get to this point of becoming a physician. And then there's this point where you're like, well, what's next? What's the next thing that's going to push me? And it wasn't necessarily within the hospital walls. And this is my way of expressing myself. So that really resonated with me. The other thing that I took away from this is his talk about having everything, being a young, successful physician, living in Atlanta, having a great social life. But at the same time, still something is missing. And when his, therapist basically said, look, you have everything, but it's just your perspective on things have changed from trying to attain something to now being bored and trying to, look for what's the next big challenge that may be consuming you. And if you change your perspective a little bit, that may change your thoughts on things. And that was really, really important also. But listen, if you all felt the same way, if you all thought, those were the big highlights from this episode, go ahead and tweet me or even leave a comment in the comments section on the website. As always, look, you all can hit me on Facebook, Instagram, as well as Twitter. The links are on the website. And if you enjoyed this interview, if you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to leave me a 5-star iTunes review. Look, it doesn't have to be 5 stars, but I hope you do. But either way, leave me a review on iTunes. Remember, reviews on iTunes are very important. It helps the show to grow. It helps me grow up the rankings. It helps other people find this show a lot easier. And then also at the same time, I get a chance to get you more great guests. And I'll catch you on the next episode. But before we jet, one last thing. Remember, we only have one life. Let's make it count and live outside the box.